Welcome everybody to the Washington Nationals franchise on MLB The Show 23. It is finally that time again. I have downloaded some great custom rosters that have great prospects and Fernando Tatis in the game because apparently he isn't in the base game because of his suspension. But this is my first ever video and this is my first ever franchise that we're going to be doing. My name is Vlad. Thank you for watching first and foremost, and we are going to be taking over the Washington Nationals. Now, why the Nationals, you may be asking? They have a roster that is depleted of talent. They went 55-107 last season after dismantling everything, every little piece. They traded away one of the biggest superstars in franchise history with Juan Soto. And what's left? Joey Meneses, a player that they picked up last season from international play, and one of the best hitters last season, slashing .324. Only played 56 games, though, but man, was he efficient in those games. We're going to see what he can do here in Season 2. 30 years old, though, that's the thing. So, how long are we going to keep him around? He can play a little infield, he can play a little outfield, but a player that has not left this team is Steven Strasburg, still paying him a lot of money over the next 4 seasons. But are we getting that many innings out of Strasburg here? I mean, I think we need to take a long, hard look, and he can be a guy that's dealt during the deadline. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed about this team this season is just their lack of talent. Their number 3 players, ratings-wise, is Lane Thomas. I mean, just not good. They literally dealt away everybody. Starting pitching-wise, they got Mackenzie Gore, and I'll talk about Mackenzie Gore a little bit later, but after that, Josiah Gray, Anthony Banda, who's down at AA for some reason, Trevor Williams, Tim Cate, Chad Kuhl, Cade Cavalli. I'll also talk about Cade Cavalli a little bit later here once I go over the prospects, but he is somebody who I see as being very promising for us. And Patrick Corbin, who we're paying $21.6 and $25.1 million for the next 2 seasons for a 65 overall 33-year-old. And I'll tell you why. Look at that ERA, 6.31 ERA. 5.84 ERA, 5.82 ERA, and then 4.66 over the past 3 seasons. Just has not been himself since 2019, since that World Series run. They paid him the big bucks, and they're really paying for it now. We'll see how he bounces back. I don't know if he's going to be the 5th starter yet. I think there's young guys that I want to develop in front of him, but we're paying him a lot of money to be here, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the team. I don't know if we're going to have to cut him or what. But as we go further down the list here, not really too much intriguing-wise. Jackson Rutledge is a guy who we could consider giving a little bit of time at 24 years old, be potential 62 overall, though. Nothing really stands out here except for his velocity, maybe a little bit. But you'd even want that to be a little bit higher. Let's go over to the relievers. Carl Edwards Jr. here, who was a really good reliever for us last season. Some could say elite. 2.76 ERA, 62 innings pitched, and he's a guy that I look at. He's going to be here, but also another deadline target if we're not interested in, if we're not competitive, which I don't expect us to be. Sean Doolittle, who's starting in AAA, but he will likely get moved up to MLB. I don't know what he's doing here. I don't know what he's doing in AAA. I don't know why he's down here, but $1.5 million for this season. Most likely will not be coming back, but it was fun while it lasted. Sean, obviously a big part of that 2019 World Series run like you saw earlier in the video. Closers wise, Kyle Finnegan, Tanner Rainey, both of these guys will start at the MLB level. Finnegan will likely be the main closer, and then Rainey will most likely be the setup guy. Catchers wise, Keibert Ruiz, a guy who I think has a lot of potential. 251, 273 here these last 2 seasons. Think this was a guy who we got trade-wise. I'll have to double-check that, but he's a switch hitter, and I think he can be a really nice catcher for us. Riley Adams is the backup. Not much to write home about here, but, just there ain't much on this roster. Israel Pineda, just a whole lot of yuck, really. Michael Chavis actually starting the year in AAA. For some reason, Dominic Smith is up instead. Smith was a guy who we picked up from the Mets last season. Pretty highly touted prospect, I have to say. Mets really like this guy, but just kind of flamed out after this 2022 season, batting under the Mendoza line, just not the best. But let's take a look at what else we got here, and it's not much. Michael Chavis, he's got a little bit of power to him. Spent last season on Pittsburgh. I remember when he was back in Boston earlier. But we'll make the decision on if we want Dominic Smith or Michael Chavis to start here. Probably just start with Chavis, and I'll just edit this around a little bit later. Going on the second base, and Luis Garcia is a guy who I think has a lot of potential to become an everyday guy for us. He's got great contact stats and put up a pretty impressive season, batting .275, and he's a guy who is easily replaceable if we want him to be, but that hitting-wise, this is a guy who I'm going to try to develop. Travis Blankenhorn, Sammy Infante, just not too much back here. Although Infante is interesting, being 21 years old and 87 speed, could easily become a platoon guy with all of those positions that he can play, third base, shortstop, and all the outfields. Moving on to third baseman, Jaime Calendero, hope I said that right, but he will be our everyday third baseman. Picked him up from Detroit last season. Had a couple of good years here in 21 and 20. Kind of fell off the map a little bit last season, but we're going to try to recoup some of that potential that we saw. 29 years old, though, and the door seems to be closing pretty quickly. I'm not even going to attempt that first name, but Vargas here, 31 years old, just a middle infield guy. Just there's a whole lot of players like this on the team who are too old to be developed, but too low rated to care, if that's how you want to put it. But here's a guy who we are excited about, Brady House. If you take a look here on the rankings here, the prospect rankings by MLB.com, he's the 5th rated prospect in the national system at the moment, and he is a guy who I foresee being a pretty big part of our future. Already a 64 overall, can play third and short, and he's already got pretty solid hitting ratings, and he will likely start up the year in Double-A, I'd probably say. And then Jake Alou here, 3A, will probably move Mendoza up to Triple-A as well. Shortstop, very interesting here, C.J. Abrams. He was a big part of the Juan Soto trade. We got a lot of good prospects back out of that. He can play middle infield and outfield. He'll get you a hit against the right-handed pitcher, but other than that, those hitting stats aren't the best. He's got some speed. He's got some okay fielding. Only a 67 overall right now, and definitely a big part of the future. Behind him, we have Jeter Downs, a guy that probably should be on the Yankees with that name, but picked him up from Boston last season, and there's not much here yet. I think that he can certainly develop into something, but he will likely be just a backup middle infielder for the season. Going out to left fielders, and let me talk about the outfield here for a little bit. We have got a whole lot of mid, and then Joey Meneses. Lane Thomas, he could also probably play every day for this season. We're going to need him to. Had a pretty good season in Seattle his rookie year, but other than that, Lane Thomas could be a guy who just fills an outfield need for us while we develop the guys, and there's a lot to develop here. Let's take a look at the top 3 prospects in the farm system right now are all outfielders. James Wood, Robert Hassel III, and Elijah Green, and they are all listed as center fielders right now. Not to mention still having Victor Robles here, a player that I think a lot of Nationals fans were hyped for, a part of that 2019 squad, but has recently fell off the face of the earth, batting under the Mendoza line here in 2021. But let's take a look at the prospects that we have, and the first one I want to go over is James Wood. Now, Wood here was obviously a part of the Juan Soto deal, as you can see with that, what's it called, like that little card in the top left. He's got his Padres uniform on, and he's got solid contact stats, not the best runner, but he will start off the year probably in AAA. We'll move Derek Green down, and he's young, he's ready to go, and I think he could be a guy who starts very soon for us. Then we got Robert Hassel III, another one of these outfielders. He can also play first base, so that could fill a need for us. And Hassel, the number 2 rated prospect in the farm system, 21 years old, and he is somebody who I can foresee being very good. And then Elijah Green. He was the 5th overall pick for us last season. I believe we picked 2nd overall this year just because of how bad we were. But Elijah Green is a guy who is also going to be a big part of our future, and he will be a starting outfielder in some point. It just depends on how long we keep Meneses around and how that's going to turn out. So let's talk about prospects. So obviously the top 3 guys are who I just mentioned: Wood, Hassel, and Green. Now if we go beyond that, we got to take a look at starting pitcher. So let's go back here to starting pitcher, and that will be Cade Cavalli. He's the 4th ranked prospect in our farm system. Cavalli is a guy who hopefully, I mean, he's 24 years old, but he's a guy who hopefully can develop into a middle, a 3 or a 4 guy for us and turn into a really quality starting pitcher. And then behind him is Brady House, who I mentioned a little bit earlier. And House hopefully can turn into something good. Only 19 years old. They got him in rookie ball right now, I believe. And he will be called up probably to Double-A, like I mentioned before. So now let's take a look at the contracts that we have for this upcoming season. I believe we can do this in view budget. So Steven Strasburg, he's only in year 1 of this 4-year deal that we gave him, making $35 million a year. And it's not like we have a ton on the payroll, because after Strasburg and Corbin, Trevor Williams is only making $6.5 million. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility here, but we have a lot of prospects that we have to re-sign, and we have to be very wary of the trades that we make and the free agency moves that we make. So we got guys here who are making a little bit of money, but all of these guys are going to have to be re-signed or put up for arbitration. There's going to be some good players in here, and I definitely think that we can retain some of these guys, but like Dominique Smith, I'm not so sure what we're going to be doing there. Even a guy like Lane Thomas, if these prospects come along, then we likely won't have a need for him. And we could even flip Thomas at the deadline. I think he'll definitely have some value, because I'm pretty sure he's going to be hitting pretty early in our lineup and can turn into one of those guys who we flip at the deadline. Team needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at these team needs right here real quick. It's basically everything but right field. Right field is fine for now. Meneses is going to be holding that down for us, kind of our only saving grace right now. But I think he can definitely turn into, another deadline flip. So, the jury's still out on him too. But we basically need everything. I think in the draft we're going to attack pitching pretty hard, because outfield is looking pretty shored up with the prospects that we have in the system. So we're going to attack pitching, and we likely need to go out and get another catcher. Now, scouting right now is shut off. Draft day is in 100 days, so don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to scout, and I will do some of that off camera and just sort of give y'all guys a little recap at the end of every episode. That's what I plan on doing for scouting. So, yeah, we need everything. That's no secret right now. So let's go take a look at the waiver wire. I wanted to double check this real quick. We are here at the waiver wire, and Yusei Kikuchi is here. Last season, a 5.19 ERA, and he's never really turned out to be what I think people expected him to be when he came over from Japan. And he's somebody who we can pick up if we need to. But this is something that this is a decision I'll likely make at the end of next episode, or at the beginning, depending on who I want to pick up. So let's go look at who we're going to be playing. We'll start off the year against the Braves, since Spencer Strider will be their ace. And then I'll likely do opening day as its own episode. Then I'm going to take it month by month, all the way. I assume we're not making the playoffs this season. So after the season ends, here October 1st against Atlanta, I will pause for a second, then do an off-season episode, a little bit of spring training. Maybe I'll live stream that just to get acclimated with the players, and then we will hop right back into season 2. But I think the biggest focuses right now needs to be figuring out who we're going to deal at the deadline, because we will be sellers. We are currently the last ranked team out of everybody in the MLB right now. Last in power, second to last in pitching, third to last in defense, and just there's not a whole lot here, but I see a lot of potential moving forward. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for episode 2. It will be out very shortly, and I'm going to go figure out what the heck to do with this roster. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.